Good evening, everybody. Welcome to City of North Ridgeville Planning Commission meeting for December 9th, 2025. Madam Secretary, please call roll.
Members of the board, Ali,
Present.
Toth,
Here.
Schumann,
Here.
Abens,
Here.
Smolik.
Here.
Members of the administration, Assistant Law Director Morgan is excused. Planning and Development Director Lieber. Here. City Engineer Evanson. Here.
At this time, I'm going to ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Has everyone had a chance to review the meeting minutes from our November 12th meeting? Is there any corrections at this time? Madam Secretary, I do have a correction. Call to order should be by Vice Chairman Smolik, not Schumann.
Chairman.
Chairman,
Chairman.
yeah. Any other corrections at this time? With that noted correction, the minutes shall stand. All right, Madam Secretary, actually, we're going to go to, is there any correspondence brought before? I think there was one correspondence and email.
Yes, but at this time, the administrative approvals are next.
Okay. Director Lieber, administrative approvals.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Since our last meeting, there have been 2 certificates of zoning compliance, one for Wild Bill's Tobacco of North Ridgeville on Cook Road and one for Random Apocalypse Comics and Collectibles. You can visit them on Center Ridge Road and the Nino's Plaza. Thank you.
Okay. At this time, Madam Secretary, please read the first application brought before the commission tonight.
PPZ 2025-0392 Ridgefield Subdivision, PPN 07-00-00-000-473. Applicant Keith Filipowski, Pulte Homes of Ohio Corporation, 387 Medina Road, Suite 1700, Medina, Ohio, 44256. Owner Bob Schmidt Homes Incorporated, 9095 Gatestone Road, North Ridgeville, Ohio, 44039. Proposal consists of an amendment to the preliminary plan.
Okay, Director Lieber, findings of fact.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Ridgefield subdivision was originally proposed in 1994 by Bob Schmidt Homes. Along with the development proposal actually came this Chapter 1282, which is the single-family detached and cluster development. So this chapter that you review frequently, this was the project that started it all and has become the code that many developers in North Ridgeville have relied on since then. As originally proposed, the Ridgefield subdivision comprised about 500 acres and a total of 894 dwellings, broken down into 701 single-family units and 193 cluster units. At the time, again, 1994, total open space was 110 acres, which is about 22% of the development site. Density was 1.79 units per acre. The development site is a combination of R1 Residence District and B3 Highway Commercial District. Back in '94, residential uses were permitted in the B3 district through conditional use as granted by the BZBA at the time. But as you know, since the 1994 preliminary plan approval, Ridgefield has underwent construction through many phases and over many years, and each phase has undergone engineering review and final plat approved by the Planning Commission prior to recording. So I think the most recently approved phase was phase 17. So at each phase, as each phase was submitted, some minor deviations from that original preliminary plan were approved. At each stage, Bob Schmidt was required to demonstrate continued compliance with the overall density, the mix of unit types, the minimum open space requirements, all as required by the code. And I would say that, adjustments for a project of this size and duration over, the many decades, including changes to numbers of units, street layouts, and building orientations was just natural for a project, again, of this size and layout. So over time, 20 additional acres have been added to the development. From the original approved preliminary plan to date, the anticipated number of dwelling units also increased. If you kind of track all the final plat approvals over time, for each final plat, there was an additional exhibit submitted that would show kind of the running total of what it was anticipated to be at full build-out for the community. And so, you know, at the low end, it was that 894 that it started at, and the highest it reached was over 1,000. 1,048 was the top of that range. So again, the documentation shows that the total development area now is over 523 acres, and open space has increased. Also, you know, the number of cluster units have also increased. With recent changes at Bob Schmidt Homes, there's a remaining portion of undeveloped land, about 132 acres or so, and that's been sold to Pulte Homes. They intend on taking over construction of Phase 18, which was submitted by Bob Schmidt Homes and is currently under review by engineering staff. At the request of the city, Pulte is seeking amended preliminary plan approval for the remaining undeveloped area of Ridgefield. Over the past several decades, as I mentioned, the subdivision has evolved. There have been incremental modifications made across many phases, and this amended preliminary plan now serves to consolidate all those prior adjustments and just establish a clear plan for the remaining construction of the remaining phases of the project. Pulte intends on assuming Phase 18, and then we'll develop Phases 19 and 20, which will complete the subdivision. So those two final phases, 19 and 20, encompass approximately 124 acres with about 62 acres of open space. The phases include 54 single-family homes and 137 cluster units. And as you know, while individual phases can vary in the number of units or in the amount of open space, from a zoning standpoint, we look at the subdivision as a whole. So at full build-out, does it meet the number of single-family to cluster ratio? Does it have at least the minimum required open space? And is it within the allocated density of 2.3 units per acre? So I provided with your report a chart that summarized, it's shortcutted. I had a whole chart that had every phase from 1 to 18, but I took out everything from 1 to 17. So you could kind of see, you know, where the number of units and the density was back in 94, most recently at Phase 17 approval, and then as proposed that will complete the subdivision. So total dwelling units at
Director Lieber,
build-out.
could you hold 1 second?
Yes.
I think the commission's trying to find that chart.
Okay,
So what does the
It
chart
was-
look like so we all know what,
it's this.
okay.
So it was included in my staff report. At total build-out, Pulte is proposing 980 units, not Pulte constructed, total Ridgefield units. That means the number of single-family units will be 559, the number of cluster units will be 421. That keeps the percentage of cluster units within the permitted 35% of allowable units. Total open space will be about 160 acres, which is 30%, which is, you know, 20% required, 30% provided. And the density will be 1.87 units per acre with a max 2.3 would have been permitted. So for every zoning metric, the project at full build-out will ultimately comply. Residents in future phases will be fully integrated into the neighborhood, will have access to the same rec amenities, and including the Ridgefield Rec Center, as I understand it, as all other subdivision residents. As I mentioned, the proposed amended preliminary plan is zoning compliant. The applicant's requesting 3 small modifications from Planning Commission on subdivision design standards and 1 area of cluster unit spacing that's within the purview of Planning Commission to grant. The applicant has addressed some earlier comments from staff related to sublot numbering, setbacks from detention basins, retention basins, wetlands, et cetera. They've adjusted utility locations to stay out of sublots to the extent possible. Staff had also requested that applicant provide a traffic study. That was just provided this afternoon, so I've not had an opportunity to review it in detail. I believe engineering should have a good eye on that during their review process for the upcoming phases. And also, as we move forward with the engineering review, after approval, we'll have to determine, where amenities such as the mailbox locations are going to be proposed and how that will be addressed, landscaping, and to ensure that street trees are provided in accordance with our requirements. The type and variety is reviewed by our city arborist. That provides some background, and that concludes my report for the moment. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. City engineer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of our staff engineers has already provided several comments from engineering, like additional detail for our engineering permit review process, including providing documentation for the approved jurisdictional delineation of the wetland areas and any subsequent 401 or 404 permits for mitigating any wetlands within the project area. We also requested a riparian buffer provided on all wetlands, such that a 10-foot no disturbance area is provided beyond the wetland boundary itself, which I believe is being shown on the current preliminary plan that they had submitted. All wetlands and their setbacks should remain outside of defined sublots so that easements are not required within the sublots to protect those watercourses. Additionally, we would like any shared common swales, drainage systems, floodplains, and the like that would reside along the rear or side yard of the sublot to be in common blocks to be maintained by the HOA. In regards to stormwater, we also asked the applicant's engineer to provide us with an all-encompassing stormwater management report for the entire Ridgeville development. Up until now, we have not really been provided a comprehensive report that depicts the necessary pre- and post-development maps, as well as the interconnected hydraulic modeling for all of the existing and proposed conditions. There was one item we reviewed of the road network system. There is one cul-de-sac that is longer than the suggested 600 feet in our codified ordinances. However, a waiver by the engineer is acceptable if the street cannot be connected back into the roadway network, which I believe is the case in this situation because the cul-de-sac is completely surrounded by wetlands and making it impossible for it to connect back into itself or another street. In our pre-planning meeting, we also talked about making use of some of the common space areas by providing additional landscaping and enhanced features, such as walking paths that would be beneficial to the residents and enhance some of the large open space areas that are being provided in the overall preliminary plan. But we have yet to see those details in the plan set, and I'd like to see that developed a little bit more with their engineering permit. We also discussed in our pre-meeting the necessity of careful planning of their mailbox locations and the street lighting. In the previous Bob Schmidt home area, the city allowed for the globe-style lighting that was installed in each yard to count towards their street lighting coverage. However, our current standard is the traditional carriage-type post lights placed along the roadway network in ideal situations, intersection curves, and the like. It would be our preference to assimilate to the city's standard practice. Lighting should also be in proximity to the mailbox units. And again, we discussed that in our pre-construction meeting, or pre-application meeting, excuse me. Lastly, we requested a traffic study be performed to analyze the current conditions and the full build-out conditions as well. From what I could tell, there was no traffic study required in the original Ridgeville Planning Commission approval. I don't know if I can't recall if it predated the traffic study requirement. Although we just received the report today, as the director, as Ms. Lieber had mentioned, and I have not had the opportunity to review it thoroughly. I did notice in the report summary, it identified several turn lane warrants, but one in particular at the intersection of Bagley and Gatestone. It was a westbound left turn lane condition, did become warranted in the full build-out condition. The other warrants are required in the existing condition in the Ridgefield as it stands today. In regards to that particular warrant, that westbound left turn at Bagley and Gatestone, engineering would like Pulte to address this particular warrant. We had a similar situation with the crossing at French Creek. Their development had connected to the older existing development behind their development to the east, and it just, the traffic that was speculated for traveling through their new development had put them at the cusp of warranting, I believe it was the right turn lane. And so we did require Dries to install that turn lane based on that warrant. And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. Is there someone representing this application tonight? Go ahead, just state your name and address for the record and tell us a little about some additional information besides what the administration provided.
Sure, hello, good evening. My name is Keith Filipowski with Pulte Homes. Address is 387 Medina Road, Medina, Ohio. Good evening, Chairman, Planning Commission, board members, and staff. Thanks for your case this evening. We have a presentation prepared. I'd like to walk everybody through so I can acclimate everyone with what's going on with the project. A lot of those will be reiteration of what staff has already explained. We've been working with them collectively along the way as we've gotten involved with this.
Is your microphone on?
Did you need me to repeat any of the information I just stated?
No, I think it's fine.
Okay.
Am I starting with the top one?
Yes, the PowerPoint, no, not that. The lower PowerPoint, and then if you want to adjust it to full screen. Your slideshow. Okay. And then you'll do the clicking, correct? Yes. Okay. All right, if you want to go ahead to the next page, whenever you're ready. But wanted to just give everyone a background of who Pulte is, national home builder. We built about 29,000 homes this year. We've got about 240,000 lots under control nationwide. This year is our 75th anniversary, in fact. We were founded in 1950, so it is our 75th anniversary. One of the top 3 home builders in the country. Serve a wide range of products that cast across all target consumer groups for the most part. Industry-leading standards in terms of building methods and materials, industry-leading warranty, a 7-time recipient of Great Place to Work Achievement Awards, a company that prides itself on do the right thing. Next slide. Locally in Northeast Ohio, we're currently operating in about 20 different submarkets across Northeast Ohio. This year we'll build about 650 homes. Here locally in Northeast Ohio, we've got about 3,100 lots under control. That's about a 4.5-year supply of lots on the ground. Our territory, as you can see on the map here, ranges anywhere from Avon Lake down to Menor, or over to Menor, down to Greene, and pretty much everywhere in between. Next slide. We are familiar with the city of North Ridgeville in terms of our history in building here as well. We successfully operated our Pioneer Ridge community, which is our Del Webb. That's our Del Webb brand. That's sort of our, it's a age-restricted 55 and older community. It was the first Del Webb community in Northeast Ohio. We have since just opened up another Del Webb in Columbia Station. It's about 622 lots, and that's active in the marketplace as well. In fact, a lot of the products being offered there are set to be offered in this community. But that totaled 790 homes between Pioneer Ridge and Waterbury. So I think 585 homes in Pioneer Ridge, and then Waterbury was single-family homes at 205 units. Just an introduction to our team here, our operations team, collectively over 132 years of combined industry experience. I've been with the company 21 years myself. I've done pretty much everything for the organization at this point. I've been their director of construction. I oversee their architecture, having an architecture background, and currently in land entitlement. I think importantly here to understand is that we are the builder and the developer. So we have a land development team that's on the operations team as well. But we are a builder, developer that will see it through. In fact, we also have our own mortgage company. So we were all in service from start to finish. So the project itself, again, a little bit of a reiteration, but when you look at the master plan that was originally set out for in 1994 with Bob Schmidt Homes, 523 acres. Of that, the phases 1 through 18 are 399 acres, which left a remaining 124 acres in the blue, which is the raw land that we're purchasing. It was referenced at 134 acres earlier. That is including phase 18. Staff went on to say, break that apart, but I just wanted to make clear it's 124 acres of raw land in the blue, and then phase 18 would tack on the additional to make up the 134. Currently in the community, total units, phases 1 through 18 is 792 homes and about 96 acres of open space, which is about 18% lower than the requirement for the chapter requirement. But, you know, on that point, Kim, the director, had mentioned it earlier, as to be expected, frankly, with a community this size, change is expected over time. And so, you know, out of the last Planning Commission application that came through here, there was a total of 1,048 homes, and they were actually 21 units and clusters over the percentage requirement. You can see that the open space was also not meeting the requirements. So I think what's important for everyone to understand, and we're going to do a little bit of a plan comparison between Schmidt Homes' most recent proposal for phases 19 and 20 and what ours is. But I think what's the most important consideration here is to judge and consider against the Chapter 1282, which is the code, the zoning code for this community. And that would tell you that this is an allowable 1,204 units with a minimum open space of 20%. And then the cluster to single family ratio is 35% to 65. That's the guide. Those are the guidelines for code that we need to serve against. So just to lay it out, in the yellow and the orange there, that is representative of Schmidt Homes' intended preliminary plan, the last we saw, which was with their submittals for phase 18. And that included 94 cluster lots and 80 single-family lots. So out of phase 18, they were ultimately intending, and it could have changed again for them. I mean, it had changed over time along the way anyway, but at that point in time, they were quoting at 966 total units, 381 of which were clusters, 585 were single-family, for a total open space acreage of 160. What we are proposing is virtually the same. Total units of 980, so 14 unit difference. 421 cluster lots, 559 single-family lots, and 159 acres of open space. So again, the 1.87 units per acre, well under the guiding consideration of the code, which is 2.3 units per acre. So just a side-by-side comparison, just as a visual, so you can see the difference in the two plans, the way they're laid out. Pulte being on the right, of course, as it's labeled there. And then we've just sort of charted out the statistics that I just gave you on the previous slide, so you can see them stacked up to one another and just get a better frame of reference. Importantly, beyond the density, I would also call out on this slide that the green dots, you see 4 of them on the left and 4 of them on the right. So all the while there are slight adjustments in the land plan, the connectivity between the two existing to new raw land all remain the same. So this is just sort of a product breakdown, because again, of course, we've got the cluster, we have cluster lots and we've got single family lots. So we've got it sort of color coded here. The green will be 55-foot wide cluster lots. There are 56 total of those. Those will be typically 40-foot wide footprints at 2-story. The red to the north of the page, east of the project, will also be cluster lots. Those are 40-foot wide ranch products, totaling 81 of those. And then our single family in the purple to the south or the right side of the page is the 80-foot single family lots, totaling 54 of those, for a total of 191 lots within the new raw land phases of 19 and 20, for which we're here for approval tonight. So this map here just kind of breaks it down so you understand the phasing and the timing. So we've tried to track that out for you. We've also giving a little bit more insight into everything we're purchasing. If you look at lot number, the pink there, the first bucket, number 15, that is lot 690 within phase 15. We are purchasing that vacant lot. Phase 17 in the cyan, there are 16 lots there that we are purchasing. That phase is already developed, shovel ready, certain homes built, and the remaining lots we are set to take over. And then phase 18, that is on the left side of the page in the center there, north. That phase is entitled, yet to be land developed. We would plan on starting that in the spring. Of course, the lots on the ground I just mentioned are shovel ready, so as soon as we were to close on the project, on the land, or the overall purchase agreement, we would of course start building in that phase. And then, you know, if things go well and we're approved for our preliminary plan, we'll continue on with final engineering. And if all of that tracks out with all the requirements, suggestions, and collective effort that was mentioned by the city engineer, Christina, then we would hope to start earthwork in the summer of 2026. Then just based on absorptions rates, we'd probably plan to start our earthwork the following spring for phase 20. And then notably, our model park in the green down on the south side of the project, bottom of the page there, is an area where, if anyone's familiar with our business model, for any community we open up, we like to have a professional look. We have the products we intend to offer, at least one floor plan of each product series. We'll showcase those, furnish them, and we'll have a sales representative working out of there in a conditional use format for the duration of sales. Once the sale is complete, we will then convert those garages back to a standard living condition and hopefully relieve our conditional temporary use occupancy for a final occupancy for a homeowner to live in. But we will own the model homes until that point of conversion. So all that would track out to about call it a 4-year project, market condition dependent, so call it 2029. So as was mentioned earlier, 3 different waiver requests. We have exhibits to show you exactly what those are, but thought for the sake of making it easy and a one-stop place where we can go back and revisit if you needed to recite it. We've got it listed here for you. But it's to do with the minimum road radius, cul-de-sac length, and then some setbacks around the model park. So I'll go through those for you. So the first one, the radius of a road for family residents should be no less than 290 feet. We're asking to allow for that road radius to be 150 feet. And I'm sorry, my red laser isn't working on the screen here. Otherwise, I'd point out the top portion of the yellow there is the radius in question. that moment was set by way of Phase 18 already being approved with its retention basin. Phase 18 being up there at the top left corner, you can see the black circle, 18, that is Phase 18. That retention basin and those lots are set in stone already. So that coupled with the intersection, we're kind of bound to that condition. I don't see it as problematic in any way. At least that's the feedback I think we've gotten from the city engineer, who seems to be concurring as we speak. So that is the first waiver. The second waiver is the cul-de-sac length should not exceed 600 feet. We're asking for a cul-de-sac to extend to 630 feet. So just a 5% incremental difference. I would maybe argue it's de minimis, you know, and it'll result in properly proportioned lots. We have virtually nowhere to go in terms of being surrounded by, if not wetlands. We've pushed all of our utilities outside of the lots at the direction of the city in terms of you know, infrastructure. So we're kind of pinned in there as well. This isn't, these waivers, by the way, are not an uncommon sight for what you might see for previous engineering and roadways that have gone on in the community of Ridgefield itself. And then the last one is code requires a 35-foot setback from a cluster sublot to a single family lot. As mentioned before, we're demonstrating all of our product lines in a model park. So we will have a cluster situated right at the end of that red tip arrow there. So in theory, that should require a 35-foot separation setback. However, the reason for our request is because we feel that the yellow strip that's indicated below that abuts the street, that same dimension there, which would have otherwise been the setback between the cluster unit, is most definitely better served at the location where we indicate it in yellow. That is going to provide us additional space for more buffering between the existing and new community. So that is the baseline for why we're asking for that request. It's kind of goes along the whole strategy of, and what we've been talking to city staff about is, you know, wherever we have a connection from existing to new, to try and create a substantial buffer accordingly. Proposed stormwater, 5 new stormwater management ponds will be created. These will be wet ponds. I think the community is used to dry detention basins. These will be blue wet retention basins, so 5 new ones. The existing storm basin called out there, the air is a little small maybe for the crowd to see, but that's just showing that that's part of 18, which was already approved, and then 5 other water structures around the site. All of the basins for phase 19 and 20 are going to be oversized to allow for slow release and minimal discharge. That's, you know, to ensure we've got overcapacity and that we're managing against any potential concerns or considerations against any sort of flooding. So I think that'll be a terrific thing. Lorain County has no concerns with any of the discharge, in particular with the way we're designing it. So that's all positive. All the basins, by the way, will be designed and implemented in the early stages of the land development because each phase will rely on those basins for the drainage patterns to occur. And I mean, ultimately, Pulte's working closely with the city to make sure we meet or exceed any requirements that may be, you know, associated with the water basins. Wetlands. This is representative of a delineation map that we've put together with our wetland consultant experts, HCW. We in fact have gotten affirmation at this point from the Army Corps of Engineers, who have acknowledged and accepted our delineation map exactly as it's represented here this evening. So we'll be heading out for permit for that. It's everything to the north and the west are level 2 isolated. The southern boundary is jurisdictional, but there's no impacts to that. So 92.4% of wetlands preserved. We're disturbing less than 3 acres of any of the isolated wetlands. So green will be wetlands that remain, And then pink will be wetlands that will be impacted, but through a standardized process and working with the Army Corps and permitting to make sure that's done appropriately and within the constraints of what is set up through the permit. No other wetlands will be or can be disturbed, so those areas in green will remain as wooded. In terms of HOA, Pulte will be joining the existing Ridgeville Homeowners Association. We've been working collectively with the entire board. We've met with them a few times at this point. We're excited about working with them. We think that the amenities that are offered in the community are wonderful, and they'll be a great asset for us just as they are the existing homeowners. I think it'll be a good thing that we are involved in terms of hopefully we'll be contributing to the, to the wellness of the HOA by way of owners moving in and contributing to those, those fees as they're required. The Ridgefield Homeowners Association they'll remain in governing control of the development, but Pulte will remain developer rights. Again, we're working closely with them to facilitate complementary architecture designs. As I mentioned, Phase 17, Lot 690. We are working to make sure that we are complementary of all that, including color palettes, and just in general, like I said, the whole strategy of existing community to new raw land, really concentrating on making sure we have a robust plan for buffering with trees and mounding wherever is possible. In fact, the HOA has gone on to even offer at our request if we can achieve landscape easements for some of the common area that abuts the existing to new, so that we can actually have more space to mound, put trees, and just create sort of a new sense of arrival into our new phases of the community. So sort of dividing church and state, but also just being very complementary of one side to the next all at the same time. So working closely with the HOA on that. I will point out that the cluster ranch products, which were at the north and top of the screen earlier, those are intended to be similar maintenance in terms of maintenance free. For whatever that's worth. So just going on to acclimate everyone with the project, open space preservation and accessibility. This again is phase 19 and 20. Just pointing out 3.37 miles of sidewalk or pedestrian-friendly walking ability. 73% of homes back up to open space or water features. 50% of the future development is designated as open space for wetlands within phase 19 and 20. We talked about aggregate for the community overall. We'll maintain at 30%. You're looking at 50% here on open space between 19 and 20. So again, strategic entrance buffering, promoting privacy, to the existing and future residents. Indicated where we'd like to put fountains in. The water basins should be an attractive thing, professionally maintained with fountains to keep the water circulating, to offer sort of a lot premium for anybody that is around those, and certainly for everyone else to enjoy as they're walking the community. We've worked with the arborists a little bit. We'll be doing one street tree per lot. We're going to vary the species at the recommendation of the arborist. We're happy to work with them in any which way they see. And then, of course, between all the buffering and everything else, devising our own lot premium strategies, we'll be installing additional common area plantings as well throughout. So just to kind of walk you through the bufferings of the areas, we tried to point out each time here on the left is the entire phase 19 and 20. This first area is to do with the model park. So just across the street from the current Schmidt Homes model park. So just giving some indication conceptually about what we're looking to do there. Again, if we can get the waiver, we can get more space there between the road and our first units, and that would allow for more significant mounding. Of course, making sure we stay clear of any utilities and infrastructure, and of course, making sure that any sightline issues in terms of going around the corner or traffic are all accommodated from an engineering standpoint. But to the extent we can bolster those areas up, that's the intention. So we've just put together with that rendering for each example of the connectivity areas. Tina, if you want to go to the next slide. So this is just a rendition of what that might look like. We do want a sense of arrival for our portion of the community, so we are indicating that we want to put some monument signs in. We try to make that reflective of sort of what's already going on out there in terms of signage and how the street signs are and everything else. So again, I think, you know, this entire project, from architecture to monumentation to just the way we're designing it, we are trying to be complementary and fit in and make sure that it's a cohesive and well thought out master plan community, just the way it was originally set out to be. So this is just the next main area of buffer, and just indicating we'll be doing the same things here. So if you want to go to the next slide, Tina, there's a rendering reflecting that. The renderings didn't quite show the mounding, unfortunately, but that is the intent. To the extent we can mound and do trees, that's what we're after doing. So I apologize for that. I'm trying to get a lot together in a short amount of time. And then the last area, this is where the project abuts phase 18. So we have worked here to and hopefully ensure that we can get some open space between our first lots being built and the existing community to do all the same stuff, trees and mounding if able. So Tina, there's rendering on the next slide for that. This would be looking back from phase 18 into the existing community. All right, next slide. So just the products that we're setting out to offer. We talked about the single family homes on the south end of the community. You know, approximately 6 floor plan offerings. All of the products we'll offer, by the way, are from our, they're vindicated in our national product catalog in terms of a floor plan, so we know them to be successful. We've used the floor plans in our market. The elevations we are still designing, so we're here tonight for preliminary plan. I don't have all the architecture finalized. I have started working on some of the architecture, and I'm happy to go through that. And certainly, if there's any questions tonight about the community, I can go through that architecture. But ultimately, for the single-family homes, we're offering about 6 floor plans ranging from 2,600 square foot up to 3,300 square feet. Dina. The cluster ranch homes, that's the maintenance-free living, setting out to offer roughly 4 floor plans at about 1,600 square feet to 2,000 square feet. And then our 2-story clusters, setting out to offer roughly 6 floor plans from 1,800 to 3,034 square feet. Important to say too that Pulte self-imposes their own diversity regulations to ensure that proximity of elevations are unique in a certain range surrounding any subject house. The same requirements for colors to be different are also within our self-imposed rule sets. Those rule sets in terms of colors wouldn't necessarily apply in phase 18. We want to do some special stuff there to match what's going on in the existing community, and I can talk more about that if there are questions. So that's all I have prepared in terms of the initial presentation, and we are happy to take questions, and we do have additional slides to support information if those potential needs come up. I say that, Tina, so you're on alert because I've got you running the clicker over there. So with that, just want to say we're really excited about this project. We're excited to work in North Ridgeville. Me having been here for 21 years, the first 2 years I worked with Pulte, I found myself up in North Ridgeville working at Del Webb. I know what a great community that was. I was a service manager in Waterbury. I'm super proud of the work we do at Pulte. I'm super proud of the city relationships we have at Pulte. I think there are even city officials in the crowd here tonight from other cities that would likely vouch for that. So we do take a lot of pride in everything we do, and we hope that the presentation is well received, and we look forward to answering any questions that you guys may have or that the crowd may have.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I'm going to open up the floor to the general public. If you do have a question or comment, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. And please, room is pretty large, stay with an audience, so keep your comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. Okay, at this time, if anybody wants to come up with any questions or comments, feel free. Thank you for breaking the ice.
I figured we could all sit there or I could get going.
Yes.
My name is Debbie Gillette. I live at 8905 Longbrook Drive in Ridgefield, North Ridgeville, 44039. I guess my biggest question would be, I see a lot of plans in here. We were talking retention basins, a landscape tree on everybody's front lawn. We've been struggling in our neighborhood with significant increased fees over the past 3 years, and that seems like much more increased fees. So I'm curious how much we expect our fees to be going up in the future, because I know basins are not cheap to care for, and additional landscaping. I know there's also a comment about additional landscaping in some of the common areas, so I'm curious what that is. Again, I'm on the corner of Longbrook and Gatestone, so I'm assuming I'm gonna have a ton of traffic going by now. So I'm just wondering if there's any plan to buffer any of the existing parts of the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write down your questions, and at the end, then we'll go through them all.
Thank you.
All right. All right, is there any other additional questions or comments? Go ahead.
I have a question. Lee Sutherland, I live at 33063 Meadows Edge Lane, North Ridgeville, obviously. On that one picture, you show the retention basin, or the wetlands, and you have purple areas where you're going to build, those are wetland areas where you're building. My backyard buffs up to the west side of that wetland. It's already wet. The woods there, my concern is you're going to raise those lots, and then what's going to happen? Where's that water going to go? Am I guaranteed that it's not going to end up making my backyard even more wet?
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Gina Morris at 9485 Root Road, and I have the same concern about drainage, where the long skinny piece of land that goes up against 18. So I do have concerns about that, and also the buffer that would be around us in that area. And the other thing I wanted to add was the two-story buildings. So all of the buildings on the other side, Ridgefield, Mr. Schmidt had kept as ranches. So now we'd have two-story buildings right up alongside our property looking down on us. So we're not too happy about that, but that's my concern.
Hi, my name's Beth Clapper. I live at 33023 Meadows Edge Lane. And our family owns the house that's actually right next to the pond in the wetlands. So we paid a premium for that lot due to that pond. I mean, I'm a bird nerd. I don't know if anyone else is, but my husband works, volunteers at the Lake Erie Nature and Science Center. And we've actually had over 75 different species of birds, migrating birds, in that little wetland. So the lots I'm referring to, 875, 874, 873, we back directly to those lots. Right now they're woods. Yes, thank you. And there's so many migrating birds there, and I can attest to, our pond is huge in the spring, huge. And it goes into the wooded area. And we did see the people coming through and checking the wetland area there. And this time of the year, it's got to be very hard to know what's true wetland, because I'll tell you, come spring and summer, it extends. And right now, the lots are all going right into that treed area that's going to all disappear with all the migrating birds and whatnot that we get there. The other thing is, when we paid the premium for the lot, we were told by Bob Schmidt, and I know we were, it's a shame, but we were told that wetland was always going to be there. And now we're going to have a two-story house. And we respect Pulte coming in. My husband and I are realtors, so I understand, I get it. I'm glad we have a good builder coming in. So we're happy about that, but I wish it was ranches behind us. I wish they didn't go quite as much into the wetland. That's all. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tom Bridge. I live at 9129 Pleasant Ridge Circle. And I'd like to hear a little bit more about the plans for Phase 18. There was a lot of focus on 19 and 20 and very little on what's going to happen in Phase 18, specifically that extension part of Pleasant Ridge there. So if you could provide a little more detail on that, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you. And then since we do have a bunch of questions after you, I'm going to have Pulte come up and try and address some of these, and then I'll open it back up to the public. So you could go ahead, yes.
Pam Hamilton, 8913 Longbrook Drive in the Ridgefield development. Big concern on Longbrook. That is going to be like a main hub of traffic coming and going. And this development is going to be for family homes, a lot of kids, a lot of school buses probably. And so that's a concern there about the development not having another entrance. And on your plan there, for Phase 18 and 19, is that backing up to Sprague Road? That's a question. And then for people that are in Phase 17, I'm not sure, that's off of Riverwood, where they're having brand new homes just built, and there's a lot of lots left open, which I believe Pulte's gonna start building there. Are those gonna be two-story homes there? In Phase 17? Because right now they've had $700,000-800,000 homes built, and they're all ranches. And I think the design's gonna be totally different from what Bob Schmidt homes are. So that's a big concern, you know, when people pay a premium for a lot. You know, that's a concern. And let's see here. We talked about 17 and then 18. So are most of these gonna be really like two-story homes now? That will be looking over the ranch homes and their property? But anyway, that's about it so far.
Okay. So we'll start off with the question on HOA maintenance. Obviously, the HOA is the one that establishes the annual dues. Is this going to be incorporated within the, I thought it was going to be incorporated in the existing?
Yeah.
So maybe you could touch base. I mean, I guess until a budget's established, you know, they won't know their dues, or they're going to pay the same dues.
Right.
So-
I can answer all the questions, but Devin Doherty with Pulte here as well with me has been instrumental
Perfect.
with the HOA. So he may be able to shed a little bit of light on the HOA portion.
And then remember, just state your name and address for the record.
Yep.
Thank you.
Devin Doherty, Pulte Homes, 387 Medina Road, Suite 1700. So we have been working with the HOA. We have discussed the costs of the HOA fees and how that impacts the homeowners. One thing Pulte does on a regular basis with our new developments is homeowners pay a one-time capital contribution fee at the time of closing, which goes directly to the HOA. So essentially, if you're adding roughly 228 homes across all the different phases, depending on what that amount is being finalized. It's just additional cash that is infused into the HOA's budget that can be dispersed through operating or reserve accounts to better handle any infrastructure for the amenities or for operation costs.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And then the next question was, I know you went over some buffering, but was there any additional buffering between the proposed phase and the existing homes?
We're planning to provide buffering at every single connection between the existing and the new. We've in fact, I personally have in fact gone out and visited specific home sites of homeowners concerned about this and offered additional buffering on top of that. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
So I guess if people have specific buffering questions. you know, they maybe should contact you or,
What about buffers on Route Road?
Against the main roadway?
Well, see, there's a lot of us that live on Route Road, like
but as far as I mean, there's no real development anywhere near those streets.
Right.
There's big swaths of,
yard is developed.
when, is it possible we could, let's see if we could bring up one
We
of
can
those
pull up the
exhibits.
preliminary plan.
Right.
The overall preliminary plan.
Yeah. Hold on, we'll bring up from what we're looking at, none of the proposed lots are anywhere close to any of the outside streets.
We're near 791, 792, 796.
Well, no, the question was, there was
They're like right.
questions on,
I can't see the mouse.
I guess the easiest way I can put it is the area there that you mentioned, if you're in that cul-de-sac to the south end of the screen there.
Yes, private, then he put a retention basin in.
Oh, you're the property in between, I got you.
Right, so then, now, our property now, he had us drain into the development, but now the other half, and we have a small retention pond there, and now it goes into the soybean field, which now will be houses. So I'm not sure where our water's gonna be.
Yeah, well, we'll have first of all, everything will have an engineered solution with our engineer who is here tonight and can speak to that. But, I mean, the lots in that cul-de-sac back up to woods, the houses, I mean, I don't know how many feet the house has to be away from the rear of our property lines, but at least a few hundred feet, so,
I was concerned about the water, that's it. I know it looks nice.
gotcha.
Yeah, we use
We own the woods.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, everything will have an engineered solution, and we plan to solve for any drainage concerns, stormwater related, so.
so maybe
And-
just
and-
remind them, any proposed lot will handle its own water, no water will leave the
Yes.
proposed lot onto an adjacent parcel.
But currently our land drains onto that soy field. There's like a
ditches.
ditch.
Correct, so you have,
Farmer dug-
right,
Yeah,
so they have the riparian, you have a riparian right to drain through there, so they have to grab your water.
okay.
Yep.
They just can't, they can't
Yes.
block your water.
Yep. You can see we've got a retention basin just to the north of the screen there as well.
Yeah, so this,
Yeah.
just so everyone's aware, this plan is like a cartoon, if you will, it's schematic. There's a full engineering plan that needs to take place, and that's where they capture all the perimeter drainage. That's where they make sure each lot water's contained on the lot and contained within the subdivision. And like you said, if adjacent parcels draining onto the new subdivision, they have provisions in there to pick it up.
Yeah.
So that all happens, and then that's where the city engineer goes through and reviews all that to make sure all that, happens. But this is just like, we'll call it the cartoon, if you will.
Yeah, it's a full technical review and, accommodation for stormwater runoff. And so like wetlands, just because we ignore it, meaning we don't cut the trees down, doesn't mean we don't ignore it. We still have to make sure that everything is draining properly and that, there's an engineered solution in place, which will all be reviewed under scrutiny by the city engineer.
Right. So I think there was some questions in regards to, obviously what's before the commission today is phase 19 and 20. Phase 18 is not brought before the commission tonight. But I believe I guess, Director Lieber, where are we sitting with phase 18?
Phase 18 was previously submitted by Bob Schmidt Homes to engineering for construction review for approval. And so the city engineer can let everyone know where that stands, but it is not part of the amended preliminary plan.
Correct.
Right.
Right. So I guess, phase 18 is pretty straightforward. It's just got one straight street, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's all but ready to land develop. We are intending to put the 40-foot wide ranch homes on that site, just so everyone knows. So those will be ranch products there. if that's what the main concern was. And again, we will be accommodating some open space at the transition of the existing community into Phase 18 for a buffer strip there.
So that's on Riverwood?
And I wish my clicker worked. This is Phase 18 right here. Pleasant Ridge. So we'll have buffers here, and then these will all be ranch products.
So all of Pleasant Ridge will be ranch.
Yes.
What about Riverwood? That's a different phase, but what about Riverwood?
She asked about 18.
So, all right, so then the next question came up that there is, you have products for two-story homes, you have products for one-story homes. And then that's where we have the two different lots. We have what we call the single-family lot, and then we have cluster lots. So I guess the question is all the single-family lots two stories, or is there ranch products available for those?
We haven't final determined all of our portfolio yet, but typically you'd expect in our single family series that are two-story, we'll offer ranch homes. That particular series offers a plan called the Amberwood, which is a highly successful plan for us. We build around the city. So likely is the case that we'll offer that in that phase, as well as in the other cluster section.
Correct.
It's slated to be two-story. It'll be a mix, but
Right.
predominantly two-story.
So predominantly, you're sort of assuming that the single family, the bigger lots are going to be two-story.
Yep.
And then the smaller cluster lots, maybe 50-50, or what do you, I mean?
I can't represent what the end mix will be. It's going to be based on the consumers and their takes, but we will typically offer some portion of ranch availability in those series. So.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could maybe get a clarification, I think the person was asking the couple of lots that you're gonna be building on Riverwood. And that's a couple of lots.
Phase
in there.
17.
Yeah, and they're concerned as to most of the houses, in fact, all the houses there are ranch. And they're worried about a two-story going into those couple of lots.
Right. Yeah. I know there's a lot of discussion about that phase, and you've now also called it to attention. I do want to make sure, just to remind the board, that we're here for an approval of phase 19 and 20. Having said that, though, Tina, if you want to go in the presentation past the appendix, I'll tell you where to stop, and I can give you sort of a highlight of what I've started to design.
Okay, I gotta get back up.
Oh, sorry, guys.
Get my steps in.
While she's getting that ready, we could tackle another question. The question came that the wetland delineation was performed, in December. But I don't think people realize everything that goes in a delineation, like organics, the soil, vegetation. So maybe you could explain a little bit about how.
Well,
Right.
I guess I would just say that the delineation was determined over the summer. It is the Army Corps of Engineers that we wanted affirmation from.
Oh, perfect.
So the delineation was done during the summer months, and then the Army Corps has now affirmed that delineation to be accurate.
Okay. So just so
In
everyone
December.
knows, even though the land doesn't have to have standing water, if you will, for these specialists to determine if it's wetland. They look at all kinds of variables. They actually look at the soil, they look at vegetation, they look at the moss on the trees. There's all kinds of parameters they look at. So you don't technically need to have water on it to make sure it's a wetland or not. So,
Right.
Sorry, it was there.
all right. Then we're going back to question in regards to phase 17, what that type may be.
Right there.
Right.
Back. Okay, so to answer your question, point blank, all ranch homes.
That's what
Okay.
they want to hear.
And what we're doing, again, my background in architecture, we are, the top streetscape here is my attempt to blend into the mid-century modern look. I'm trying to produce product that looks reminiscent of what the existing community would show. There are certain hard, fast rules that I'm applying in terms of materials and colors with respect to wanting to ensure that we've got those charcoal colors to match some of the really nice stuff that's going on out there. So that's why I mentioned earlier, this would be a case where I'm not going to have our company self-impose color changes between houses, rather the opposite. We want it all to be a little more monotone to fit in with the existing community. So this is just an example of what our stuff might look like versus the other. We're intending to do all board and batten siding at the front. We are intending to do flat panel garages. Those I understand after working with the HOA are some hard, fast things that people really want to make sure that they see. So all of that's being built into the plan. We're even going as far as offering the same lamp lighting, although hard to find those lamps at this point, but I think we've sourced it at Amazon. But for the sake of fitting in and just making sure we're as consistent as possible and blending in, that is our approach. That is the attempt.
Would that approach also be the case for the single lot on Longberg?
Yes.
15?
Yes. Yes.
Why not use that approach for the whole subdivision?
Yeah, well, we also want to differentiate ourselves. I think the community's lovely the way it is, but we have a certain brand that we want to market to as well. We're good at doing certain things that we're familiar with doing in terms of not only how the floor plan lives, but what the architecture looks like and everything else. So we'd like to stay consistent with what our streetscape typically represents. We're very proud of that, albeit a little bit different. But that's, again, why we've gone back to this idea and working with the city staff to just generally say to ourselves what makes good sense in terms of separating the existing from the new by way of buffers. And, while we're separating ourselves, we also are trying to blend at the same time. So we're trying to work all that out, quite frankly. But tonight we're here to get an approval on a land plan. Once we know that we can actually fill out a land plan, then we'll keep working more specifically on the architecture. But I think in the very early stages of this project, I think that the example shown here in terms of blending in, when we're literally putting homes right next to existing homes, is I hope the board thinks a good attempt.
Excuse me. Behind Meadows Edge.
I'm sorry, ma'am, if you have a question, you have to, so we're still going through and then when I'm done, you could go right back up when all right, so the last question on this list is that sublot 873, 874, 875. I think that's where there was some existing wetland impact. Do we have that in this presentation?
You can pull up the. It's not part of the land we're purchasing, but I know where she's speaking of.
Okay.
So we don't intend to impact that. It's not designated as a wetland. At least we haven't delineated because it's not on our property. So
Okay. So perfect. Okay. All right. Ma'am, now you got the podium.
Donna Barker, 33071 Meadows Edge Lane. I have a couple questions. First of all, when you say open space, what does that mean? Does that include storm retention? Or is that something to beautify the area? I'm not quite sure. Also, behind us, and I don't think this would be directed to the planning development maybe. What does it take to have wetlands be built on? That was wetlands behind us, and they were supposed to stay wetlands. Now we're gonna have part of it built up and a two-story house put on it. We paid premium for that lot. And it's very upsetting, and unless all of you live there, you don't know. But if you do live in that area, you know. So anyway, that's my concern, and I can't understand why they would build a house on wetlands. And if somebody could maybe call me and let me know, I would appreciate it.
Well, we could probably touch base on it a little bit. Is there any other questions or comments from the general audience? Go ahead.
Hi, Christy Dunn, 31678 Sprague Road, and also, I guess, 31690 Sprague. So we own two properties right there next to the big soy field that is all wetland. Our yard floods most of the year. So I guess a couple questions. So we also have Fortune Ditch running through our property that floods. I know Lorraine County has a project going on to try and mitigate some flooding there. So my questions are you guys planning on sending any water to the Fortune Ditch? Because if so, that's going to have an impact on our property. And then let's see what else. In where you're building along the soy field, you guys are planning on putting that big, I guess, like water retention area instead of, yeah, that one right there. In here. So this is, these two are us.
Yeah, gotcha.
So is the houses that you're building right along all of that, I assume grade's gonna get built up so that they don't flood. Is any of that going to have an impact on our property? I know you said that there shouldn't be any impact to surrounding properties, but like I said, we already take significant water. So that's just one of our concerns. And then I guess this probably isn't for this meeting, but I'm just curious what the plans are for the existing wetlands in terms of vegetation, because right now the grass that's growing in those fields it's invasive and it's taking over our yards in that area. So I would like, I guess, better vegetation that is more suitable habitat for the animals and all the birds and everything that do use that land. And then, so this was a question for my neighbor, and I don't know his address, but he's the property right on the other side of us. He was asking to get a buffer. So he's this one right here. So looking for a buffer of trees. Like he said, 3 alternating rows of pines and or spruce along our property lines to kind of block out, right now we have a nice peaceful view. We see a few lights coming through from the development, but we moved out here because it was more rural, and now we're getting all these houses. The soy field across the street from us is going to be developed in Eaton Township as well. So we're kind of losing our ruralness that we had, and so we're just looking for extra buffer to kind of make us still feel like we're a little rural, I guess. And then, sorry, one last question. You guys had mentioned more sidewalks and everything in terms of like to increase walkability and like walking paths through the area. And I'm just curious if that would go through any of the existing wetlands or in that, I guess, where that big water retention area is, if that's gonna be like a park area, because then the sidewalks are gonna be closer to our property. And I'm just concerned that people, walking might, if there's kids living in the neighborhood, that they could come onto our property.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Is there any other questions?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for taking the time to listen to us. I'm Jeffrey Smith, 124 Middle Avenue, Suite 800, Elyria, Ohio. I'm here with Peter Lavenzi and Matt Thomas. They live at 9154 Longbrook and 9162 Longbrook. And I don't know if you can put up it was about the 10th slide, which shows the comparison between Bob Schmidt. We're here because Bob Schmidt, they had purchased these homes from Bob Schmidt, and their backyard was to not be built upon. And he was advised, and if I can approach the chairman?
This is a civil matter, does not involve the city of North
Well,
Ridgeville.
no, yes, it does, because it has to do with the developer adding on lots to, and particularly lots 873 through 875. And those are the lots that are added, and Bob Schmidt had indicated that they were not gonna build anything, and they had asked him, and Mr. Schmidt's representative, Scott Kubit, did send them a letter to that effect regarding this. It deals with the fact that there is a substantial buffer that was there between their house and what was going to be in the new phase. And I heard that 73% of the properties have open space behind them. And in our situation, they're taking away the open space that was there. That's the one, if I could go over to it,
Sure.
thank you, if you wanna.
Just be mindful of your 3 minutes.
Yeah, I got it. Well, that's why we're trying to keep it short to the point. Where's 873 and 875? The middle road. Huh? The middle road. But anyway, where it is, thanks. Yep, they live right here. Okay, that's right. That's where we. Right, and what's happening is with the advent of lots 873, 874, and 875, what was once their open space is now going to have houses in it. And that's really their biggest complaint. And when they're talking about substituting buffers for new versus old, this is new coming in. We were hoping that, particularly in light of the fact that with all the units that are there, and that they actually increased it a little bit from Bob Schmidt's, that we could do something with regard to those, and that the planning commission would look at that. Additionally, they have offered it, and Pulte's been very kind in talking with them and trying to work some things out where they might even be able to buy that area. But that's what we want the planning commission. Anything further, Pete?
Yeah, I'd like to read the note from Scott Kubik.
Okay, just, you'll state your name and address for the record.
My name is Peter Bovenzi, 9154 Longbrook. And Scott verified that what was presented to us verbally, he put it in writing and shared it with Pulte. Hi, Keith. Pete and Becky Bovenzi stopped by our office today, which was Friday, to discuss the land behind their home. It was our intention, if Bob Schmidt Homes were to develop the open acreage, to build out the area consistent with the plan attached. I believe that their main concern is the amount of land that we were planning to leave open behind their property versus the proposed plan by Pulte Homes. We made no contractual agreements, but this was the verbal discussion, and it is what we would have done. They asked that I relay this information to you for clarity. If I can be of any assistance, please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you, Scott.
Mike, anything?
Yeah, Matt Thomas, 9162 Longbrook. So the gentleman from Pulte started the discussion saying that you guys pride yourself on doing what's right, right? So your proposal there is to build a 2-story house in my backyard. That's it. That's all I have to say.
The only thing I would add is I looked at the agenda, that is Pulte Homes, and that the owner is Bob Schmidt Homes as well. So thank you very much for your time, and we won't
Thank
take
you.
any more of it.
Thank you.
I'll make this brief. Joe Lazaro, 33047 Meadows Edge Lane. 4 quick questions. I know this is just an early drawing. At what point, once you get the buffers established, okay, are you going to allow public input? Is that protocol or not? I'm not sure.
This is public input right now.
No, I'm saying, once the engineered drawings are done, that shows the buffers, et cetera. You said this is just a preliminary set of drawings, and that you'll have engineered studies that shows buffers, setbacks, all that.
Correct.
Is public allowed to input?
No, then it gets a professional review by a licensed engineer.
So we have no input other than today?
No, you have access to administration anytime you want. You could talk to
Okay.
them.
How will we be notified when those drawings are done so we can give you input?
I mean, you could reach out and inquire through the engineering department. So what happens is this is the development plan approval.
Mm-hmm.
And
No, I
then-
understand that.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, you would have to touch base with the administration on
Like
that.
on a weekly basis to find out what the status is?
You talk to them. We're just a commission.
Okay,
We're-
fair enough.
We're not the administration.
Is this presentation available to the public on the website?
It's public record. Yep.
So this will be on the website for us to take a look at the Pulte.
I'm not sure if it will be on the website or not, but you could request a public record of it.
Okay,
Is it?
fair enough. If we have questions of Pulte,
So, just to clarify it, any commission meeting is recorded on a live stream, so you could technically replay the live stream and see it.
okay, thank you. If we have questions for Pulte, is there a name and a phone number for us to contact?
Yeah, the administration could provide that, yes.
So contact the administration. Okay, thank you.
Hello,
Hello.
my name is Rebecca Bovenzi, and I live at 9154 Longbrook Drive. My husband already spoke, but I did want to say we did pay a huge premium to live on our lot. I think it was close to $50,000 more because we were going to have the lot with the trees behind us, and they are putting those 3 homes in that open space that we had said. And we actually were going to have 177 feet until that house was supposed to start with Schmidt, and then our neighbor, Matt, would have had 115 feet. So we're losing quite a bit of our backyard that we would look at. And across the street were the same two identical lots. We would have chosen those lots at the same size because we would have been guaranteed 250 feet also on that side, but we chose this side with the 250 feet, so we would have the woods in our backyard. And now we are losing that, and we did pay a premium for that. And as my husband said, Scott did say that he had no intention to ever to build on that property, and now there's going to be two two-story houses sitting right in our backyard. Thank you.
No problem. I'm going to wait to make sure you already spoke. Is there anybody else who hasn't gotten up yet? Go ahead.
I'm Frans Jager at 8748 Timber Edge Drive. I don't have a question, but I have a suggestion to the commission that
Okay.
under no circumstance the commission approves a plan that infringes on the precious few wetlands that are now part of the of our community.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Is there any other people who would like the first timers to speak or comment? Okay, ma'am.
This is very, very interesting. Donna Bacher, 33071 Meadows Edge Lane, again.
Thank you.
You showed us pictures of one-story homes. There's only a few of us that back up to your property that are one-story, because you're going to go further out and you can do two-story against two-story, wouldn't matter. But where we are in our premium lots, since you said that you want to do what's right, why doesn't Pulte put one-story houses on those lots behind us? That way, we don't have to worry about putting up fences, which won't need code because it'll never hide the second story. And everybody will be happy. You will still put up the houses, they will be one story, and we'll be happy.
Thank you. All right, at this time, does anybody else have any last questions or comments? At this time, I'm going to close public comment. I'm going to leave question and comment up to the commission. I guess I have a question. I guess this is more or less policy or what we've done in the past. So, you know, the cluster subdivisions allowed up to 35% clusters for allowable lots. That's the key word, allowable. Have we always tracked it versus the, I don't ever remember the allowable. I always thought we always tracked it versus total built structures.
According to the building official who has a longer history than I, it's always been based on the allowable number of units, not the actual.
Okay. So, because if you look at the actual, you know, the cluster lots are at 43%. But
Allowable.
we're going by the allowable,
Yes.
which is indicating there's allowable of 1,204 units, and they're building 980. So therefore, that's where that, so that's the 35% is based on.
The 1204.
Right.
Yes, and that
Okay.
is consistent with how the city has interpreted that code provision since 1994.
Perfect. That was what I wanted to make. I wanted to make sure we weren't doing something new because
No.
I don't know. This is the first time I've caught it. I don't, maybe
Yes.
I was sleeping before. I'm not sure. Okay. And then just so everyone's aware, this phase 1920, even though the code specifically says 35% for the entire subdivision, this phase is like 70% cluster. So I just want to make sure all the commission members realize that. I mean, it still meets code. I mean, is it consistent with code? I don't know. I think that's what everyone has to, evaluate on their own. So, is there any other questions or comments from the commission?
Mr. Chairman, I got a couple of questions for engineering. You brought up a bunch of issues when you were making your presentation. Lighting, some drainage issues. You talked about mailboxes. The traffic warrant, something about a turn lane, right? And then there was this discussion of the certain waivers that they're going to need. Are these things that we should be bringing up if we were to do a recommendation tonight?
I think it is pertinent that maybe you address those in the approval process, if you need to add the conditions of some of those suggested recommendations.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to kick it back over to Pulte because the commission had a chance to sort of speak, and I want to catch back up on some of the residents' questions.
Mr. Chairman?
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
You didn't give me a chance.
I was going to go back to you, but go ahead.
Just a couple of questions and probably can't answer them. I receive a lot of, I'm councilman for the area. I receive a lot of complaints on the older cul-de-sacs deteriorating. And the problem being is a cul-de-sac is expensive to repair. And I guess my question would be is your cul-de-sacs at the end, will it be solid concrete in that entire center, or are you going to be putting in islands? Because, again, when the city gets stuck with it, they're expensive to repair. And many of the cul-de-sacs are coming up to their life's end. And so that's a concern down the road. The other one is, too, it seemed like Bob Schmidt was famous for, on his fire hydrants, switching sides in the same street, creating problems for parking and one-sided parking, things of that nature. I would hope that Pulte would keep the fire hydrants on one side of the street and not keep on switching it from side to side. Again, it creates problems down the road that councilmen have to deal with, and sometimes there is no answers. And I'll also say this, as far as a lot of the water issues that some of the residents have expressed, I can tell you that the projects that you have put in have solved some of the problems, water problems of the surrounding areas. Now, the one that you didn't put in, residents were complaining about water around it. And by putting in our water management system, it seems like their water problems outside that division have ended. So I'm guessing with the help of our engineering department, your stormwater management will actually help the surrounding area as far as their water issues are concerned. So I'm looking forward to that. And also, I have a lot of experience within Pioneer Ridge. It is a great community. And Waterbury is a close second to that as well. So Pulte does a nice job.
Okay, so I'm going to kick it back over to Pulte. I believe the first question had to deal with calculation of open space, what that consists of. And basically, that open space is undeveloped land, so that consists of storm and water management, wetlands, and then just normal common area. Is there anything else that calculation included for, right?
Nope, that should be it.
Okay, so then the next question is,
Yeah. So that same person had a question about wetlands being mitigated behind
perfect, that was my second question, yes.
behind their lots, but I just want to point out that there is no wetland being mitigated directly behind anyone's lots. If you look closely at the map, those mitigation areas are all tucked up onto our new cul-de-sac on the other end of the wetland boundary.
Right, and then the wetlands that are being mitigated, what level are those?
Level 2 isolated.
Okay, okay. And then I guess, could you maybe explain what mitigation means, so that way they know you're buying a land bank?
Yeah, when you impact wetlands, you essentially purchase at a price of 2 or 3 to 1 of the market value, and you're basically investing back. So whatever wetland you impact on this location, you're in fact paying to preserve wetlands at another site. So you're swapping wetlands preservation areas from one to the next. So it's not as if we just take away the wetlands and don't do anything about it. We're actually land banking to reserve wetlands elsewhere.
And it's usually a more improved, better quality wetland.
100%.
Right.
That's not our wetland.
Right. What, the other question was, the stormwater management, was there an outfall to Fortune Ditch?
No, I mean, I know that there's discussion going on at the county level with Fortune Ditch, but again, just reminding, and we do have our engineer here, but we're designing very specifically to accommodate for retention basins that have over a capacity, and then we will slow release those too. So all falls within the strategy of, managing the stormwater runoff.
Okay. And then there was a question in regards to the existing wetlands, beautifying the wetlands. So,
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we're not allowed to touch them. That's the whole point. They're wetlands, they're preserved. We are not allowed to touch those. In fact, even on our own land plan, there's a 10-foot riparian area between the wetlands and where we build our parcels, that we can't do anything there either.
and then as far as the trails going through, was there any trails physically going through wetlands?
Certainly not. Again, we're not allowed to disturb the wetlands. We have no intention of doing that. I presume that was actually the answer that person was hoping for, that we're not building trails through the wetlands and abutting their areas. That's not part of the plan.
Okay. Then there was some discussion about the soy field where there's new homes built along it, about water leaving that and draining through that. But I'm assuming all the new parcels built will have a rear yard swale, and then they'll handle their own water like we talked about before.
Correct.
And then I guess, I mean, there was some big discussion on where you have, the existing single-family homes, the ranches, and then all of a sudden a two-story home behind it. Would Pulte like to discuss a little bit more about that, or is that pretty much a?
I mean, we set out to comply with the cluster lots versus single family. So we're just seeing through what ultimately the ordinance called for and the zoning called for. And so, we have a very specific mix of product. We want to ensure that the community is successful. We offer a wide range of variety. As it stands now, Schmidt Homes has been selling homes at a rate of 1.2 per month. It's 14 a year. The HOA is, I'm assuming, severely behind on getting funds in to support the needs. All part of our business model to be successful in the community, and we're going to offer the products that we feel like are a good variety and fit within the confines of what the code calls for.
Okay. And I think the last question was additional traffic on Longbrook Drive. Do you guys foresee any additional issues with that?
I don't foresee any issues necessarily. We haven't done a traffic study. It's not focused on that area, but I don't anticipate any issues.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I've just alerted to one zoning issue I wanted to bring up, because as I was scrutinizing, as the residents were bringing up that lots 873, 874, 875 area, and if you recall, we talked about how our code has requirements for setback to open space or setback to single-family lots, and you're requesting certain waivers for your model park. But I'm alerting to the fact that it looks like 873 would not, if it's a cluster lot, which I believe it is based on your coding, doesn't have that either 15 feet to open space or 35. I can't tell because it's not labeled, but it just looks, my eyeball tells me it's probably not.
If that's a block, you're not sure if that's a block or open
Well,
space, you're saying?
Like there's that skinny little strip,
Yeah, it's 20
but that's
feet,
20 feet.
20 feet wide, but I'm not sure if that's identified as a block or open space.
Right. But then also, on the other side of it is a single-family lot, so it would still hold that it would need to be, 35 feet. It's not one or the other, it would be both standards. So that might be a potential solution to the desire to provide a little bit more setback from those existing homes.
I'm happy to go to a slide and discuss that. That was, Jeff Smith and Peter and Thomas had come up and asked certain questions about that lot. We have been working, I have met Peter in person. I've spoken to Jeff. We are discussing the idea of them purchasing that land back, for one. We don't know quite yet if that's something that's feasible to do. I also told them that I would take a look creatively at the land plan to see if there's anything else I could possibly do. And so I did put together a small exhibit here. If you go into the appendix specific to your area, as I did take some time to take a look at that, and hopefully we can make a little progress there. Keep going. Right here. Okay. So, can I leave the microphone here? Or?
Yeah.
First of all, again, I had asked if they would be willing to accept a buffer. I proposed that as a start point that we put plantings along the strip of that block. That's the first thing. I also offered to offer more landscaping. I only indicate 5 trees here, but I've indicated and I've discussed with them the idea of offering more buffer on their property if they would like. So that's another measure. The other thing I just want to point out too, when you say that we'll be building a home right behind your house, it's actually not really the case, right? I mean, the home, the typical cluster lot here is 145 feet deep. This lot is significantly deeper. In fact, the home will be way up here. I understand that.
That's behind Nat's house.
Yeah, that's my backyard. I understand that. I understand that. But I'm just saying with respect to Peter's up here standing, so I'm addressing him at the moment, that's all. But I just wanted to point out for this area that your sight line won't be homes in the back there. And perhaps there's a scenario where we could open this up into common block area. So those would be some certain solutions I would offer beyond the idea of them purchasing the land back. We don't have an answer on that. I think the point of it is that we're working with them to try and come to some sort of solution. We do want to work with you guys to the best of our ability. I think Jeff Smith can vouch for who I am. He's seen me around the market, other projects, and knows that I'm good for my word when I say we'll do our best to try and work with you.
So am I correct that 873 is 2-story though?
That product line is one of the sections that are predominantly 2-story, but we will likely offer ranches in that series as well. So we could spec the home, for example. We build speculative inventory. We could spec the unit on that lot. I'm sure it's a ranch potentially is one thing we can look at. I can't make a commitment on any one of these things in terms of buying the lots, which ranch plan it'll be. I don't have that information here tonight. These are very specific questions. We're very early in the process. But my commitment is to work with you guys in any way possible to try and come to a resolution that is, that's going to be impactful for you guys. I also want to point out, though, too, that this common area or block is not being disturbed. There was another person that came up and asked about this pond. None of that is our property, so we're not touching it.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other?
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
But just to go back, that, the code establishes cluster setback from single family, so the commission would have to grant an additional waiver to that area if you were to entertain the current layout. Otherwise, if you do not entertain that waiver, they would need to meet the required setback or seek a variance.
Perfect, understand.
Yep.
Is there any other questions or comments from the commission?
I have a question for the commission.
Okay, go ahead.
I needed clarification on that rule set. Is the 35 feet from building to building, or is that from building to property line, or what are the specifics of that requirement, so we know what we're talking
Building to property line, from
Building to
cluster footprint to single-family property line, side or rear.
about? That's 55 foot wide lot. Not knowing the product that's on it, perhaps there isn't a condition require waiver required because maybe the unit becomes less in width by way of introducing a different ranch home or whatever that might be. So
Okay.
otherwise, if that's the rule set, we would ask for a waiver on that.
Okay, is there any other questions or comments from the administration? All right, is there any other questions or comments from the administration? Hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion. At this time, I would like to make a motion to approve with the following conditions. The Bagley and Gatestone intersection shall be improved to meet the recommended warrants. The minimum road radius waiver, the cul-de-sac length waiver, the setback from cluster to single-family waiver, and the last one, administration shall review sublot 873 to make sure that no waivers are required. It has to meet code 100%.
Mr. Chairman,
Discussion?
could we add that the discussion about the lighting and the mailboxes per the engineers earlier discussion?
That phase, through the chair, that, I just want to clarify, are you asking, so I'm asking them to meet the current city standard, which is normal carriage fixture type street lighting
Okay.
along the
So that-
roadway system.
So if you say it like that, then we don't put it in here.
Well, I would put it in there.
Okay.
Just to clarify, because that hasn't been
we want it-
historically what we've been
okay.
using in Ridgefield, so I would clarify that in the condition. And that the mailbox units are lit.
Okay.
Perfect.
Do you understand?
I do.
And Mr. Chair, can I also, I just want to make sure in your conditional approval with the turning warrants. So there were several warrants that were found to be needed, some in the existing condition, but only one in the full build-out. And that was the one I was, wanted to ensure that they did
That's the one,
address.
yeah, the one that is recommended by the city engineer. Perfect. All right, any other further discussion? Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Madam Secretary, please call roll.
Ali,
Yes.
Toth,
No.
Schuman,
Yes.
Abens,
Yes.
Smolik.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-1.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
perhaps we could just take a minute break if people in the audience want to leave and not stick around for the rest of the
Right.
meeting.
Perfect. Also, yeah, we have some legislation that would be before the committee. One last reminder, this is a recommending body. We're not the final. It does go to city council. They're the ones who actually are the approving body. So all we do is make a recommendation. The commission still has business, so if you are adjourning, please adjourn the room. There should be no discussion in the commission chambers.
Need to go down to the lobby.
I'm going to pull through PowerPoint again.
Once again, if you are exiting, we ask that you exit quietly, so that way the commission can continue their business.
Down there before the crowd pit.
Mr. Pulte. I'm just gonna call you that. It's a pleasure meeting you. I hope everything turns out good. You know, really, I think it's going to. It's gonna be good.
She's so upset she couldn't come tonight, you know?
Well, I understand that. I'm upset too. That's why.
By, you know, our backyard and then there's
Same
this big
here.
house.
Same here. That's why I hope.
Feel free to call me.
Mhm.
Oh, could I have your card? I want a free fill. You better leave out a punch.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure that's true.
All right, thanks. Nice seeing you.
Keith, take care. Good to see you. Okay.
Thank you. Thankless.
Thanks.
Nobody's patting us on the back for me.
Okay. Vicky, go. All right, Madam Secretary, please read the next application on the agenda for tonight.
Ordinance 2025-154, an ordinance suspending by right cluster subdivisions in the R1 Residence District and amending chapters 1250, 1280, and 1282 of the North Ridgeville zoning code, introduced by Mayor Corcoran, first reading on 11/17/2025.
Okay, thank you. Director Lieber, I guess some context?
Yes, I have context.
No.
Right, I mean, it's,
No, you don't.
Shall I continue? Or are we waiting for Mr.
No.
Ali? Okay. So this ordinance does three things. It amends Chapter 1250, the intent section, by deleting the second sentence that references the ability to propose cluster subdivisions. It also amends Chapter 1280 and Chapter 1282 and the intent with a new applicability section in each chapter indicating suspension of the respective cluster districts. So it's maybe apropos that we had a cluster discussion tonight and our first 1282 cluster subdivision from 1994. But this ordinance would suspend the ability of developers to obtain approval for under this chapter 1282 or chapter 1280 into the future, while preserving the ability of existing cluster regulations to serve existing neighborhoods as Ridgefield and some of the other ones that were originally developed that way. Cluster subdivisions have been permitted by right in the R1 district since the city adopted its first zoning code in the 1960s. So the 1280 style, and maybe these numbers mean not as much to you as they do to me because I stare at zoning all day, but 1280 was the original cluster subdivision that just allowed a reduction of lot size by 30% in exchange for some minimum open space requirement. An additional cluster by right district, this 1282, was adopted by council in 1994, and that contains greater flexibility. And as we've seen, and as many of the commission members know, in recent years, developers have increasingly utilized cluster provisions rather than our traditional R1 standards, in large part because they can reduce lot sizes and they have greater design flexibility. As a result, I don't know when the last time North Ridgeville approved a subdivision, a major subdivision under just the R1. I think for decades it's been one of those two cluster districts. As you also recall, our master plan had looked at some issues related to our zoning and the kinds of developments resulting from our current zoning regulations. So the city hired last year a consulting firm, McBride Dale Clarion, to conduct a comprehensive review of our zoning code and our subdivision regulations. The diagnosis was presented to this body last December, so a year ago, and some of the deficiencies it noted in our current regulations included that while clusters were designed to be density neutral, so 2.3 units per acre under R1, 2.3 units per acre under 1282, the expectation was that smaller lots would create greater open space preservation in the cluster development for functional and interesting open spaces to provide more amenities and make these developments greater places. But the reality is that, you know, stormwater ponds, wetlands, narrow unusable strips, those are what has been preserved in that 20%. So probably not swimming in a stormwater pond, and those little strips of land behind other people's lots basically become their extended backyards. And wetlands are good for nature, but they're not necessarily good for active recreation spaces. So it has not resulted in the type of open space preservation that I think the city was hoping for, and doesn't have that density neutral feel. Instead, it has that feeling of every area is developed, and only the areas you couldn't do anything with anyway are the things that get preserved. So, you know, the zoning code rewrite is well underway. I actually have a full, complete, cobbled together draft as of this week, all 120 some pages of it, and I've been going through it for coordinating all the different sections. But at this point, you know, we kind of see where we're headed with this new code, which is the cluster development will not continue permitted by right. So instead, any cluster style residential proposal or mixed use development would have to follow a planned unit development process. And that includes a legislative rezoning by city council. So this approach is intended to provide planning commission and council much greater control over the kinds of developments we see in North Ridgeville, including density housing types and other neighborhood amenities that I think will create these higher quality developments. So then, you know, we have not begun the adoption process, and just because of the extent of the code rewrite, I'm anticipating it's going to take some time, and also because how many different properties it will impact in the city, and the hearings and the notices and the readings and all of that. That's going to take some time to get through once we get to a final product that we support. So until then, those existing provisions that allow cluster developments by right remain in effect, and new projects continue to be submitted under those rules. But because the draft code's near completion, I think that this is a good time to sunset our current cluster subdivisions. The R1 residence district will remain. It doesn't mean a developer can't propose a traditional R1 subdivision. They could under our subdivision regulations, so it does not close the door to developers. But in this interim period, it will ensure that, you know, those minimum lot sizes and other dimensional requirements will be those larger rather than the smaller, and maybe will help slow some of that cluster or residential growth while we give ourselves time to implement our new code. I want to point out, importantly, the code does not alter existing approvals for cluster developments or phases. So like Ridgefield tonight, or the crossing at French Creek, or North Ridge Point, anything that Hampton, anything that had previously been approved continues. And it also confirms existing clusters remain legal and zoning compliant. So we're not making them all non-conforming, because that would be a nightmare. So instead, we're saying it's legal, it's zoning compliant. We're going to keep the regulations governing them in the code, so real estate agents, residents can find them, bankers can find them if they need to find them. And because we get a lot of calls these days when a lot is shown as R1, but it was developed as cluster, it's not designated specially on the map. And then they call and say, well, this lot's 76 feet wide and it's supposed to be 90, and did it get a variance? And so these are routine calls. So another part of what we're going to do with the code update is a map update, and we're going to apply like some hatching or color coding to the map that shows which of the developments were approved by cluster. And that way, people who look at the map can tie it back to the correct code provision, rather than what we get now, which is nobody understands and it's very poorly documented in our history. So that is what's being proposed through this ordinance. Thank you.
Well, I think you planned it perfect, because what was presented to us shows why we need to redo this. Yeah.
You know, interestingly, because some of the questions that came up about open space and amenities, and we've struggled as staff because our subdivision regulations lay out these minimum things that need to be submitted for preliminary plan review. And it's like contour at 2 feet and a north arrow and like lots. And it really doesn't, at the preliminary stage, it doesn't get into the fine-tuned details of these developments. But over on the zoning side, it tells you like, it should be, again, functional and interesting, it should have these amenities, the commission should be able to review these things, but really it doesn't come to you fully baked until the final plat. And by then, the roads are in, the sewers are in, the water's in, you know? So, it doesn't give you really good opportunity to weigh in on changes at that point. So we experience a lot of internal frustration that some of these issues are not required to be addressed on the upfront for preliminary, but by the time it gets to you for final, it's kind of like too late. So this will solve that issue as well.
Right. Very good. Right. Is there any other questions or comments from the commission? Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Yes, I think this legislation is overdue. I applaud the administration for taking these steps, and I am happy to see that we are going to finally corral these types of issues. Thank you very much.
Other questions or comments? Go ahead.
I was going to move for, that we vote to recommend.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, I moved that we vote to recommend 2025-154.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay.
Go
ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm late again, aren't I?
You're fine, that's why we.
I'm one of those folks that disagree. I'm not against this legislation, but I consider the wetlands, I consider the retention ponds as amenities and that. Because if you notice, there were a couple of folks here who were upset that the wetlands would be disturbed because they're birders. And they like going through those wetlands. I think sometimes we confuse amenities with playgrounds, swimming pools, and that type of thing, where some folks don't want that. They really want the wetlands. They want to be able to watch the wildlife and so on and so forth. And I consider that open space. Again, I'd like going out in the outback, canoeing and all that kind of stuff to see that. It's nice to know that within our city, we have those areas. Yeah, right next door is a house or something like that. But I do consider wetlands and our retention ponds as recreational areas. I know I'm in the minority, I understand that, but that's just my thoughts. And quite frankly, that's why a lot of folks move out to this area, because they're looking for those types of open areas, not necessarily playgrounds, swimming pools, and all that. They're looking for, quote, the rural area.
And I do not disagree that those are valuable. Passive open space is very important to like the health, of those communities, and the stormwater function we have to have it, right? So we have to manage stormwater, and we should not be, plowing under all of our wetlands. We need to provide habitats and for biodiversity. I'm just saying, when that's the only open space proposed in a development, that's where the problem is, and that's what we've been getting.
That's where I agree with
Yes.
you. And unfortunately, some of our plans that we've been seeing, you're right, that's all they have. But I will say French Creek did include playground areas as well as the wetland areas in the pond as their recreational area, which I thought was a good mix.
Yes.
I know there's some folks on this panel here who don't agree with me, right, Frank?
Well, but
But that's okay.
It shouldn't, right now, I feel like with it by right, every development plan is a bit of negotiation between staff and the developer, and we don't have any ammunition in our gun. We don't, we're just kind of faking it, saying like, how about you do this? And how about if you want to create a quality community, you consider that. But to have something actually written in the code that says, well, yeah, your stormwater and wetlands can be part of your open space, but they can't be your only open space. You have to provide at least certain amenities, 2 of some on this list. And so it's not necessarily a playground or a swimming pool, but, usable open space.
And I have to admit, I grew up in an area that had, we didn't realize it back then, wetlands and playgrounds. And growing up, I had a blast because there were times I could go to a playground, play ball, whatever it was, but I could also go into the wetland areas and do pollywog hunting. And some of you guys don't even know what that is.
But like the example, Ridgefield, which was just before us, in order to access a lot of those wetlands, you'd have to trespass. So
No, if you
it's,
notice, they had cuts and access to all their, because I looked at that specifically, because my particular development, we have no access to our retention pond.
Right.
But on this, if you noticed, between a number of the houses, there were strips where folks could actually get to those ponds.
and those strips are basically stormwater because they've forced their hand. But I think that's what, the spirit of the code was supposed to be like, you have these amenities, you're supposed to design around it to allow people to get to them, not inherently on accident because you have a stormwater feature. So I'm glad this is happening. And we got caught up with the 35% rule. I mean, they flat out pretty much, tweaked the math to make sure it met code. It's not, it wasn't 35% of what they're building. It was 35% what's allowable. And, but unfortunately it meets code. But now we don't have to worry about those nuances. So yeah, I like it.
As I said, I'm not disagreeing with it, I'm just pointing out that recreational areas, just not playgrounds and ball fields, it's also wetlands and the retention ponds and even detentions. Because I know in our particular pond, we're attracting every type of wildlife possible, and a lot of folks like that.
Okay, so just to make sure everyone's aware, this is just a stopgap measure, just to stop it. Then legislation's 80% done, and then we will review that total legislation at a later date. Yes. Okay. All right, so we do have a second motion. Is there any other further discussion? Okay, hearing none. Madam Secretary, please call roll.
Ali?
Yes.
Toth?
Yes.
Schumann?
Yes.
Abens?
Yes.
Smolik?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay. All right, Director Lieber, next ordinance 2025-157.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This ordinance amends Chapter 1226, Design Standards of the North Ridgeville Subdivision Regulations, and there was a replacement version I emailed Ms. Weber. Did that make it to the members? Okay. So, the city routinely reviews subdivisions proposed on sites. Actually, this blends perfectly with some of the things we were talking about also in this application. Site plans that include wetlands, natural drainage courses, and other sensitive environmental features. Clearly identifying these areas on plats and keeping them out of residential lots helps prevent grading issues, encroachments, and then confusion for homeowners down the road. It's a standard best practice to keep those features out of sublots, and it supports proper stormwater management and reduces long-term maintenance issues. So, don't need to tell you what issues can arise if there's utility lines placed in private yards, or if you're relying on individual homeowners to know what they can and can't fill or do. So, this amendment is targeted at kind of closing some of those loopholes and turning what engineering asks for in practice into a requirement, just so, again, we're not negotiating or debating, it's just stated more clearly. I know we provided some updates just this afternoon, so I'll ask the city engineer to expound further on her intent with these changes.
Thank you, Director Lieber. Yes, if I may, we've been struggling, Kim and I both have been struggling for the last year to make our developers a little more savvy in where they're putting some of these utilities and common swales. And unfortunately, our ordinances did not have a strong position on that. And so I've been only asking for those things, and most of them have complied. Like you could see, Pulte with this, Ridgefield did comply and move all of their common storm sewers. The wetlands are all off of the sublots. And to Ms. Lieber's point, right now we have 7 fence permits, 7 fence contractors who are being issued violations because they have driven their fence posts into common storm sewer between side yards or rear yards. And so it's just extra work for us. So if we can remove all of these encroachments from the sublots into these common block areas, and yes, it may be a little bit of extra scrutiny by the HOA or even potentially costs, I think there'll be less problems in the future if we move this through. And then to the revised language, unfortunately, I just didn't get a chance to review it before it went to council first draft. I just wanted to add some definitions and a little more clarification on to what exactly it is that we were asking for. So I added some definitions to make it crisp and clear for the reviewer.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions or, Councilwoman, I forgot to ask if you had any questions or comments. Sorry.
I'm fine.
All right, what about the previous one? Are you good too? I apologize.
We purposely stayed until all of them are.
Okay. Well, once again, I apologize, so. All right, does any of the commission members have any questions or comments? I guess I have one silly question. That when you're talking about the wetlands, mean freshwater, marsh, bogs, swamps, and fens. What's a fen? I never heard of that term.
I think it just means pooling water. I actually took that exact language from, I believe the EPA had some guidelines, so.
Okay.
On the definition of a wetland.
I just never heard that term before.
We'll look it up.
So yes, I think it's a good thing to manage utilities, and sometimes when they're in side yard easements, they sort of lose track of them. It's easy for, the weekend DIYer to install stuff within an easement before it's caught. It's usually the people who don't get permits, and especially the fence people and other stuff. So I think it's a good idea. The only thing is, I'm glad you added because there's always a unique situation where they may need to do it. So now, as the city engineer, that's your professional obligation to make sure all that's protected. So at least there's a catch-all in here. So that way, if you feel it's okay to put it there, it could still be done. So that was the only thing I was concerned with. I'm glad you guys got that squared away. So, yeah, I'm good with the language here. Is there any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead.
The only issue and problems that I have, and we all know what they are, is the old farmer drain tile that nobody knows about until they stop working. And I know there's one on Lorraine. I know there's one on 83 on Mrs. Sharpman's property. Hopefully, we never have to deal with that one. But I know they're all over the city. And somehow or other, we have to find a way to address those as well. And
Mr. Chair, I can expound a little bit. I know you and I have talked about this, Mr. Abens, but, with all of our new residential subdivisions, we're being more proactive in ensuring that the developers are walking those property lines that are abutting those existing homes and farms and other properties, and trying to ensure that we are catching all those drain tiles and then making them address those, either on-site or off-site. In fact, we are still working with Hampton 8. We've gone back and forth, and they came up with a design that rerouted some of that drain tile. So we're trying our darndest to ensure that those are captured and addressed. So
I understand that. Most of these are the really old developments within North Ridgeville, and it was, I always hear, but the developer told me.
Yep.
We even heard that tonight.
We did. Okay, is there any other questions or comments from the commission? At this time, the chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
I'm going to, where is it? I lost it. I'm going to move that we vote to recommend 2025-157
Did you say as amended, Mr. Schuman?
as amended.
Second.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hey, it's 10 after 9.
Madam Secretary, please call roll.
Ali,
Yes.
Toth,
Yes.
Schuman,
Yes.
Abens,
Yes.
Smolik.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Okay, Director Lieber, last order of business is ordinance 2025-159.
The city received a petition from abutting property owners on Ridgeville Boulevard to vacate a portion of Aspen Street. The 40-foot wide right-of-way is located on the west side of Ridgeville Boulevard between addresses 5660 and 5674. The rear lot line of the neighborhood, or of the neighboring lots, are adjacent to the crossing at French Creek subdivision. There's no road connection from Aspen proposed or desired at this location. The property is not needed for any municipal purpose. Just in discussion with other city officials, Section 2 of the ordinance references a 20-foot utility easement to the city, but that is not described or shown in the exhibit. Batner Ditch does run north-south along that east property line of the crossing at French Creek, so on that tree line, it's nestled in there. The city would prefer the easement be designated an access and drainage easement to allow for maintenance of the ditch. If that could be a condition of the vacation and be prepared in accordance with the requirements of the city engineer, that would be a great condition of approval. I'm stomping all over Christina's toes tonight.
I have nothing to add.
Okay. I'll open it up to the general audience. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll close public comment session. I guess I have one question. Who's paying for all the recording fees?
I think it's established in the ordinance, but I'm not exactly sure how it's been handled.
I mean,
I've
shouldn't,
been having them record it.
The petitioner records it?
Yeah, so they'll do all the legwork for the easement. We'll work with them or their attorney on writing the language, but they
do the recording.
efforts. So
because that was one of my concern. I mean, obviously, these people are acquiring additional real estate. So I was making sure that the city does not pay for, the legal for that the people acquiring the real estate are actually the ones paying. And I know we did get a email today indicating the one party could not make it tonight. I don't, was there any communication from the second party? Okay. Okay, so, yeah, is all the legal fees gonna go to the one party then? It's up to him to collect it from the second, or?
I think the city would make its conditions known, and then they would need to engage their professionals to prepare the documents and present them to the city for review.
Okay.
So we wouldn't charge them for our services. They would create the documents that would meet
Correct.
our requirement.
Yep. Okay. Was there any other questions or comments from the commission?
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
We should also remember that part of the approval for French Creek was a sidewalk through that very area in order to make it easier for the residents to reach the school in the nearby area. One of the reasons being is a master plan, if I remember correctly, we were trying to endeavor to connect the different neighborhoods with sidewalks of this nature. In addition, I'm looking down the road and the schools are in a financial problem and it's going to affect busing. And by having that sidewalk from French Creek through Aspen over to Liberty gives them within 2-mile walking radius, where right now they would have to basically go out to 83, down to
Oh,
Center
Lord.
Ridge and that type of thing. And quite frankly, I think this was orchestrated more by Dries than it was by the residents themselves, because they don't want to put it in. And if you remember too, question when we were looking at the final approval of the front, I mentioned that sidewalk, and they said, oh, no problem, it's going through. And all of a sudden, I see that they don't want the sidewalks because it's going through backyards. Well, again, I'm looking at that as the same as if the road was being put through, that road would have gone through those backyards as well. Those folks bought the property next to that dead end. And we can approve it as long as we have the easement for that sidewalk. Because I do want to interconnect. I want the neighborhoods to be interconnected.
I guess, Mr. Chair, or Mr. Abens, I personally don't recall that condition I don't, I recall the homes along that edge of the property. I don't recall there ever being any pedestrian connection or that being a condition of approval by the planning commission. So I guess I'd want to go back into the discussion and see what the requirements were, because again, that's not ringing a bell to me.
Yeah, I specifically mentioned it, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't as part of the conditions of that approval. And because, again, I'm worried about connectivity, which is in our master plan of the different neighborhoods. And also, again, as I said, the schools are running into financial problems. They're gonna be cutting back on busing. This allows those kids living in that development, quite frankly, over at Hampton across the street, to be walking through that area in order to get to school. And again, my experience as a child, we had a similar situation for me to get to my elementary school. And I'm just saying, part of the problem that North Ridgeville has had in the past is having foresight. And I think this is part of the foresight, is connecting these different neighborhoods. And this is just one piece of the puzzle. As I said, we can vacate it, but with the easement for that sidewalk.
Who's gonna pay for
Mr. Chair, can I add something?
That would be Drees's responsibility. And as far as maintaining that sidewalk, would again be the HOA's responsibility, much like any of the sidewalks that are outside the development, such as along 83. That is the HOA's responsibility to keep those sidewalks clear.
Well, that's what I wanted to add.
Go ahead, Cindy.
Mr. Chair, if I can add, I believe the Crossings 2 has a large block on the other side of this swale, and so, you know, that's already been platted, you know, and we don't have any rights over it, I guess is what I want to say. And so I think it would be very difficult at this point, at this juncture, to have to go back and, you know, ask for rights for a pedestrian way through that common black space. I do remember we talked about connectivity, which they are at, is that Rosabelle or the other side street that the traffic connects to with the roadway network. That sidewalk is being connected, but I don't recollect this connection being discussed. And I just think it would be a hardship because you have the swale to cross and then you have to, you know, renegotiate rights through the common space area of the crossings. So it'd just be a little difficult.
I guess I'm a bit perturbed because at the last time they were before the board, which was about, what, a month ago? And they said, oh yeah, that sidewalk's there, don't worry about it, Mr. Avens. And I'm a little bit, you know, you can tell Dries, I'm perturbed. Because I've noticed a couple of times when we've approved something and with amendments, and somehow or other those amendments get lost.
If a motion was made and conditions were attached, that will be in our documentation and we can clear this up. And if the commission would rather hold this into your next meeting, I think you're still within your 60-day review period on legislation, so it wouldn't, your time clock isn't out just yet.
I believe that connection was at Roseville.
That's what I thought, because that's where the street connection was.
Yes.
Yeah, that was for the road connection, wasn't necessarily for that sidewalk connection.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
as long as the applicant isn't here, maybe we could just table this? Will we table it, right?
That could be another reason. Nobody here in support of their application.
Right.
What was, you were saying there was an easement you were gonna already have in it? Or did I miss that?
Yeah.
The swale that runs north-south behind.
Right, okay, I thought
those-
that's what that easement was, okay.
Yeah, so it is a city-owned ditch that Public Works could prospectively maintain. So I didn't want to lose that accessibility for them to get in and clean that bank if they had to.
It's city-owned, huh?
So, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
So she was asking for a 20-foot easement across the property, a utility easement, correct?
This, I'm not sure how the easement language got written into the ordinance. It might have been just our law department drafted it that way, but I think we specifically want to ensure that it's a 20-foot access, like for access and drainage easement.
Okay.
But we can also review the approvals from the crossing at French Creek and make sure we're not missing
Nice.
anything.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I'm sorry, Ms. Lieber. I think I recently reviewed this particular property from some Google Street Maps and noticed that there is some encumbrances on this property. And so I would prefer that the access be blanketed over the entire thing, because I believe they might have to, maneuver across some of these encumbrances. There's a utility pole and some guy wires and some trees. So I'd rather just blanket it so they have the whole.
So you don't have to define a
Yes,
narrow corridor.
define the corridor. I'd rather it just be over the whole entire piece. I believe it's 40 feet wide, yeah.
Okay. All right, I guess at this point, the chair will entertain a motion.
I'm confused.
Well, you could table it.
Okay, go ahead and make a motion that we table, what is this, 159, 2025, 159?
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, it's late. The secretary, please call roll.
Ali,
Yes.
Toth,
Yes.
Schuman,
Yes.
Avens.
Yes.
Smolik.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, there is nothing else on the agenda?
Mr. Chair, just one announcement. I
Oh,
hope.
go ahead.
I hope the commission received and enjoyed your master plan annual report, the
Yes.
first of what will be many, but that I thought was a good way of cataloging what we've done, which made me happy to see how many things we're actively making progress on. And my second announcement is happy holidays. I hope you all have a
Oh,
great
yeah.
Christmas and see you next year.
Same to you.
Happy New Year.
All right, at this time, the
Merry Christmas.
City of North Ridgeville Planning Commission is adjourned. Good evening, everybody.